Elena Barnes clutched her small leather satchel tightly as she stepped off the stagecoach, her heart racing with anticipation. The dust from Montana's dirt roads swirled around her feet, staining her worn dress. Miles from everything familiar, she had traveled halfway across the country with dreams of a new life, built upon the promise of a marriage arranged through letters. But as she gazed around the small, bustling frontier town, the reality of her vulnerability weighed heavily on her. "Miss Barnes!" a voice called sharply. Elena turned quickly, heart leaping into her throat. A tall man with dark eyes approached, his posture rigid and impatient. "Are you Mr. Wilson?" she asked softly, hopeful despite the unease blossoming within. Matthew Wilson looked her up and down, a scowl forming on his lips. His gaze lingered disapprovingly on her simple dress and travel-weary appearance. "You look nothing like the picture you sent," he sneered. Elena swallowed hard, confused. I I didn't send any pictures, sir. Just letters." Matthew scoffed, folding his arms across his chest. "Well, I expected someone more presentable, someone who wouldn't embarrass me." His voice dripped with disdain. A few bystanders stopped, watching curiously. Elena's cheeks flushed crimson, humiliation burning through her veins. "But we agreed," she began hesitantly, desperation seeping into her voice. "Agreement's off," Matthew snapped. "Go back to wherever you came from. I have no need for a pauper bride." With that, he turned sharply on his heel and strode away, leaving Elena stunned, standing alone amidst a crowd that murmured and stared. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Instead, she squared her shoulders, determined to maintain what dignity she had left. "Ma'am, you all right?" came a gentle voice. She turned to see an older woman, her eyes warm with sympathy. I, "I'll be fine," Elena lied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." Hours passed slowly as Elena wandered the town, hopelessness growing with each step. Night approached, and the chill of the mountain air made her shiver. With no money and nowhere to stay, the reality of her plight sank in. Her feet ached, her spirit nearly broken. She sat on a bench near the edge of town, the vast wilderness stretching ominously before her. "Need help, miss?" came a sudden voice from behind. Startled, she turned sharply to see a tall, rugged-looking man wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a heavy coat. His blue eyes were calm, gentle, but cautious. "No, thank you," Elena replied defensively, clutching her satchel tighter. Her fear was evident, yet something in his steady gaze eased her tension. The man nodded, understanding flickering across his face. "Name's Nathan Blackwood. I own a ranch just outside town. It ain't safe for a woman alone out here." "I don't even know you," Elena protested weakly. Nathan's expression softened. "I reckon that's true, but I also reckon you ain't got much choice right now. Townsfolk been talking." Elena looked away ashamed. The sting of humiliation was still fresh, yet Nathan's sincerity struck a chord. "Why would you help me?" she finally asked, voice barely audible. Nathan offered a faint smile. "Because it's the right thing to do." His simple words thawed some of the ice around Elena's heart. Reluctantly, she nodded. "All right, Mr. Blackwood, thank you." He helped her onto his wagon, the quiet night enveloping them as they left the whispering town behind. The ride was silent, broken only by the sounds of horses and the creaking of the wagon. Elena gazed up at the star-filled sky, contemplating the uncertainty of her future. Nathan glanced at her, sensing her turmoil. "Whatever brought you here, Miss Barnes," he said gently, "you're not alone anymore." His kindness, unexpected yet genuine, brought tears to Elena's eyes. For the first time since arriving, she felt a flicker of hope, fragile but real. As they rode into the darkness toward Nathan's ranch, Elena wondered if perhaps, amidst all this rejection and despair, fate had finally offered her a chance at something better. The ranch emerged from the shadows as the wagon rolled closer, the moon casting a silvery glow across the sprawling pastures and sturdy fences. Elena Barnes sat quietly, her fingers nervously twisting the strap of her satchel. Beside her, Nathan Blackwood guided the horses calmly, his gaze steady and reassuring. As they arrived, Nathan jumped down easily and reached out to help Elena. She hesitated briefly before accepting his hand, the roughness of his palm surprisingly comforting. Her feet hit solid ground, and she steadied herself, taking in the modest home and surrounding barns illuminated by the faint light. It's not much, Nathan said humbly, noticing her silent observation. But it's safe, and you're welcome to stay until you figure things out. Gratitude welled within Elena, mingled with a lingering sense of unease. You don't know me, Mr. Blackwood, yet you're offering your home. I don't understand why. Nathan shrugged lightly, eyes glinting in the moonlight. Let's just say I've seen what this town can do to good people. I wouldn't leave a stray animal out here, let alone a lady. His sincerity touched her deeply, easing the heavy burden she had carried since her humiliation earlier. Elena managed a faint smile, her voice softening. Please, call me Elena. Nathan nodded gently. All right, Elena. Now let's get you settled. Inside the small ranch house, the warmth from the hearth immediately wrapped around Elena, chasing away the chill of the evening. Simple yet cozy, the room was filled with the comforting scent of pine and freshly baked bread. A flickering lantern cast golden shadows across the walls, making the space feel welcoming. You must be hungry, Nathan remarked, moving towards the kitchen area. Make yourself comfortable. Elena hesitated, feeling out of place in this stranger's home, but exhaustion compelled her forward. She sank gratefully into a wooden chair near the table. Her aching limbs finally allowed rest. Moments later, Nathan returned carrying a plate with bread, cheese, and dried meat. I hope this'll do, he offered apologetically, placing the food before her. It's perfect, Elena replied softly, genuine gratitude in her eyes. She ate quietly, the simple meal tasting better than anything she could recall. Nathan watched silently, sensing her need for quiet companionship without intrusive questions. After eating, Elena felt her exhaustion return forcefully, her eyelids heavy. Nathan seemed to notice, rising from his seat. I prepared the guest room. It's nothing fancy, but you'll be comfortable enough. Thank you, Elena murmured, following him through a narrow hallway to a modest room. A small bed, neatly made, stood beneath a quilted window curtain. Clean linens and a fresh pitcher of water awaited her, gestures of kindness she hadn't expected. I truly appreciate your help, she whispered, voice thick with emotion. Nathan merely smiled warmly, stepping back toward the door. Sleep well, Elena. Tomorrow we'll sort everything else out. As the door closed quietly behind him, Elena released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The events of the day caught up with her, a mixture of sadness and relief overwhelming her senses. She changed quickly into her nightclothes, exhaustion tugging insistently. Sliding beneath the covers, Elena stared at the shadows flickering across the ceiling. Thoughts of Matthew's cruel rejection clashed with Nathan's unexpected kindness. Yet despite the uncertainties, a fragile hope began to bloom within her. Maybe things can still work out, she whispered softly to herself, her eyes growing heavy. For the first time in days, Elena allowed herself to feel safe, drifting into sleep with a quiet sense of peace. Sunlight filtered gently through the lace curtains, bathing Elena's face in a warm, golden glow. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, disorientation giving way to recognition of the modest guest room. She stretched, feeling surprisingly refreshed despite the emotional turmoil of the previous day. Sitting up, Elena gazed around, her eyes landing on the pitcher of water Nathan had thoughtfully placed on the bedside table. She poured a cup, savoring the cool, refreshing taste that eased her parched throat. A newfound calm settled over her, fueled by the peaceful morning atmosphere. After washing and dressing, Elena made her way cautiously toward the main living area. Soft humming drifted from the kitchen, accompanied by the enticing aroma of sizzling bacon and freshly brewed coffee. Pausing at the doorway, she saw Nathan at the stove, expertly flipping strips of bacon onto a plate. Good morning, she greeted softly, not wanting to startle him. Nathan turned, offering a welcoming smile. Morning, Elena. Hope you slept well. I did, thank you, Elena replied, approaching the table where plates and cups were neatly arranged. She felt a pang of warmth at the thoughtful gesture, realizing how long it had been since she'd experienced such genuine kindness. They ate breakfast in comfortable silence, Nathan occasionally glancing up with curious yet respectful eyes. Elena finally spoke, her voice tentative. I was thinking I should find some way to repay your kindness. Perhaps I could help around the ranch until I figure out my next step. Nathan considered her offer, nodding thoughtfully. An extra pair of hands is always welcome around here. I wouldn't turn down your help. Elena felt relief wash over her, grateful to have a purpose, even if temporary. She finished breakfast quickly, eager to start contributing. Outside, the ranch bustled with activity under the bright morning sun. Chickens clucked contentedly, horses grazed lazily, and the gentle lowing of cattle filled the air. Nathan guided her through basic chores, teaching her to gather eggs and feed the animals. Elena found satisfaction in the simple, rhythmic tasks, feeling a sense of belonging that had been missing from her life. As the day progressed, Nathan showed Elena more of the ranch's operations, his patience unwavering as she learned new skills. She discovered he was quiet by nature, but had a warm, comforting presence that encouraged her to open up gradually. By late afternoon, they took a brief break beneath the sprawling branches of an oak tree. Nathan passed her a flask of cool water, his gaze distant as he surveyed the land. "You've built a beautiful place here," Elena remarked softly, admiration evident in her voice. Nathan's expression softened, pride mingled with sadness. "It belonged to my parents. After they passed, it became mine. It's not always easy, but it's home." Elena sensed the heaviness in his words, recognizing a kindred spirit who had faced his own share of hardships. She felt compelled to share a part of herself in return. "I lost my family too. My parents died when I was young. I've been on my own ever since." Nathan looked at her gently, understanding passing silently between them. "Seems we both know something about loss," he said quietly, his voice tinged with empathy. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, each lost in thoughts of their past. Eventually, Elena broke the quiet, her voice stronger and resolute. "Perhaps it's not about the losses we've suffered, but how we move forward." Nathan met her gaze, his eyes filled with quiet admiration. "Wise words, Elena. You have strength in you. I can see it." She blushed slightly under his compliment, but felt her heart lift. A newfound determination surged within her, the hurt from Matthew's rejection fading slowly, replaced by something stronger, a belief in herself and the possibilities ahead. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting a warm amber glow over the ranch, Elena felt a deep sense of gratitude. Nathan's kindness had not only given her refuge, but had ignited a strength within her that she'd forgotten existed. "Thank you, Nathan," she murmured sincerely, her eyes shining softly in the fading sunlight. He gave her a gentle nod, a faint smile playing at his lips. "No need to thank me. You brought something special to this place already." Standing side by side, watching the day fade into twilight, Elena felt a hopeful certainty settle into her heart. This ranch was more than just a temporary shelter. It was a new beginning, one she was ready to embrace fully. The next few days passed with an easy rhythm, as if the land itself had taken Elena into its embrace. She rose each morning with the sun, her hands slowly growing calloused from work, her spirit tougher with each passing chore. Nathan noticed it too, the way she held herself straighter, spoke with more certainty, laughed a little more freely. But even as life on the ranch brought a soothing kind of healing, the past hadn't finished with her. It began with a knock. Elena was rinsing vegetables near the back porch when she heard the sound. It was firm, measured, but something about it sent a chill through her chest. She set the bowl down and wiped her hands on her apron before stepping inside. Nathan was already at the door, opening it cautiously. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered. His hat shadowed his face, but his voice carried a tone Elena hadn't heard in days. Entitlement. "I'm looking for a woman," he said. "Name's Elena Whitmore." Nathan's posture shifted subtly. "What's your business with her?" The man adjusted his stance. "That's between her and me." Before Nathan could answer, Elena stepped forward, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear herself speak. "What do you want, Matthew?" He raised his head, and there it was. That same smug face that had haunted her thoughts, the one that had rejected her without a second thought. "Elena," he said as if her name tasted strange in his mouth. "I've come to talk." She crossed her arms tightly. "You made yourself pretty clear back in town." Matthew glanced around the modest home, then at Nathan. "I may have been hasty. Folks have been talking. Said you ran off with a rancher. That you—" "Stop!" Her voice cracked like a whip, You humiliated me, in front of everyone. You don't get to show up now and pretend like it didn't happen." Nathan watched quietly, his jaw set but eyes steady, letting her take the lead. Matthew tried again. "I was wrong. Maybe I let other people's opinions get in my head. But we can fix this. You still have your things back in town." "No," she said firmly, stepping between him and the door. "My things are here now." There was a beat of silence. Then Matthew's face hardened. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," she replied, "but not today." With a glare toward Nathan, Matthew turned and walked away. Dust kicked up behind his boots as his horse carried him off into the distance. Nathan closed the door slowly, locking it before turning to her. "You all right?" Elena nodded, though her hands were trembling. "He's not used to hearing no." "You stood your ground." He offered a small smile. "Takes guts." She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "I never want to be that woman again, the one who waits for someone to choose her." "You're not," Nathan said gently. "You're someone who's learning to choose herself." Later that evening, they sat on the porch in silence, stars just beginning to wink across the velvet sky. Nathan handed her a cup of warm tea, his presence steady beside her. "I should have known he'd come," she murmured. "Men like him don't like being left behind." "He saw what he threw away," Nathan said. "That's not your burden." A breeze swept across the porch, rustling the dry grass and whispering through the trees. In that quiet, Elena felt the last tendrils of her old life begin to fall away. "I'm not running anymore," she said softly. Nathan looked at her, his voice steady. "Good, because this place, it could use someone like you." She turned to meet his gaze, the weight of his words settling warmly in her chest. For the first time in a long time, Elena didn't feel like a lost cause or a rejected bride. She felt like someone worth standing for, someone worth fighting for. And this time, she'd be the one deciding her fate. Morning came with a strange stillness, the kind that makes the birds quiet and the air heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Elena felt it in her chest before she even opened her eyes. Something had shifted. Nathan was already out in the fields when she stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand. The sky was streaked with bruised purple clouds, wind stirring the long grass like restless whispers. "Storm's coming," Nathan called, squinting toward the west. Elena stepped beside him, feeling the wind tug at her skirts. "You mean the weather, or something else?" He gave her a sideways glance. "Both, maybe." They worked through the day preparing, tying down loose equipment, moving the livestock into shelter, checking the barn doors twice over. The physical effort helped steady Elena's nerves, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something darker than thunder was rolling in. Just before dusk, while she was gathering firewood near the edge of the property, she heard hooves. Fast, urgent. A rider galloped in from the main road, dust rising like smoke behind him. Nathan stepped out of the barn just as the rider reined in hard. It was a neighbor, Clay Mercer, sweat-soaked and wide-eyed. "Trouble coming from town," Clay gasped. "Couple men riding hard, drunk, armed, looking for your girl." Elena's blood ran cold. Nathan stepped forward. "You sure they said her name?" "They said a woman run out on her rightful groom and was shacking up with a rancher who didn't know better. They mean her, all right?" Nathan nodded grimly. "Thanks, Clay." "Already sent my boys to help round up anyone else who might be in their way," Clay added. "But I figured you'd want a head start." As Clay rode off, the wind picked up, howling through the trees like a warning. Elena stood frozen, her breath caught somewhere between fear and fury. "It's Matthew. He's not going to let it go." Nathan turned to her, his voice firm but calm. "Then we make sure he doesn't get what he wants." They worked quickly. Nathan fetched his rifle from behind the hearth, checked the ammunition, and handed Elena a smaller pistol. She hesitated. "I've never shot a man." "I hope you won't have to," he said, eyes meeting hers. "But if you do, don't think. Just protect yourself." As night fell, the storm finally broke. Rain hammered the roof, thunder rolled like cannon fire, and lightning lit up the sky in jagged flashes. Inside the house, lanterns flickered as shadows danced along the walls. They waited. Hours passed. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind against the shutters made Elena's heart jolt. She sat near the window, pistol in her lap, nerves taut as wire. And then hoofbeats, closer, slower, taunting. Nathan motioned for her to stay low as he moved to the door, peeking through the narrow slit. 3 riders. One of them, even in the rain, looked exactly like the ghost from her nightmares. Matthew. Hat tilted low, grin full of venom. "Come out, Nathan!" Matthew shouted into the dark. "We just want to talk. No need for this to get bloody." Nathan opened the door just enough for his voice to carry. "There's nothing to talk about. You're trespassing. Leave before you do something stupid." Matthew laughed. "You're protecting a liar, a woman who humiliated me. What kind of man does that?" Elena stood slowly, stepping beside Nathan. Her voice cut through the rain like a blade. "A better man than you ever were." Matthew's expression twisted in the stormlight. "Then you've chosen your fate." He raised his rifle. The first shot cracked like thunder, but it wasn't from him. Nathan had fired first. Chaos erupted. Gunfire rang out across the rain-soaked yard. Elena ducked behind the doorframe, firing only when Nathan called out a position. She couldn't see clearly through the sheets of rain, but she heard one rider scream, another curse loudly. Then silence. Minutes passed before Nathan emerged from cover. "They're gone!" Elena stepped outside, the rain soaking her instantly. One of the horses had bolted, the others leaving muddy chaos behind. Matthew was nowhere to be seen. Nathan approached her slowly. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Number. But I think part of me changed tonight." "You didn't run," he said simply. "You stayed." "I'm done running," she replied. "Let the storms come." As thunder rumbled off into the distance, Elena and Nathan stood shoulder to shoulder in the downpour, their hearts pounding in unison. Something had been broken tonight, but something else had been built in its place, and whatever came next, they would face it together. The storm had passed, but its presence lingered in the deep puddles scattered across the ranch yard and in the smoky scent of spent gunpowder that clung to the porch. Dawn arrived slowly, its pale light revealing the scars left behind, not just on the land, but in their hearts. Elena sat on the porch steps, wrapped in one of Nathan's old wool blankets. Her hair was damp, her face pale but calm. She watched the sunrise with eyes that had seen too much yet refused to close. Nathan brought her a cup of coffee, sitting beside her without a word. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was full of everything they didn't need to say aloud. "He'll come back," Elena murmured, her voice steady. "Men like him don't take defeat quietly." Nathan nodded. "Maybe, but next time he won't find you alone." She looked at him then, really looked. His face bore the marks of worry and wear, but his eyes held something steady, an unwavering calm that anchored her storm-tossed soul. She realized she trusted him more than she'd ever trusted anyone. And maybe that scared her most of all. "What if this isn't over?" she asked. "Then we face it together," he replied. "You've got roots here now, Elena, if you want them." Elena stared out at the land, the barn roof still glistening with morning rain, the horses shaking off the damp like it was nothing. She thought of every place she'd fled, every hollow promise whispered by a man who never intended to keep her safe. And then she thought of this ranch, this man, and how he'd opened the door not just to his home, but to a future. "I never thought I'd have that," she whispered. "A place, a choice." "You've always had it," Nathan said. "You just needed someone to remind you." They spent the day cleaning up, fixing what the storm had broken. Neighbors stopped by with offers of help, word of the attack already spreading. No one questioned her presence anymore. In their eyes, she belonged. That evening, under a sky brushed with rose and amber, Nathan showed her a small, overgrown garden behind the house. "My mother," he said, "she used to grow herbs, tomatoes, flowers too." Elena knelt beside the weeds, her fingers brushing the soil. "Mind if I bring it back?" He smiled. "I was hoping you'd ask." In the weeks that followed, life returned to its steady rhythm. Elena worked the ranch with quiet strength, her hands calloused, her shoulders firm. The townsfolk warmed to her, drawn not just by her beauty, but by the calm resolve she carried. Matthew never returned. Whether it was fear, shame, or something darker that kept him away, she didn't know. She only knew she no longer feared his shadow. One evening, as cicadas sang and fireflies blinked lazily over the fields, Nathan took her hand. They stood by the oak tree, the same spot where they'd shared their first honest conversation. "You changed everything," he said. "I just showed up." He shook his head. "You stayed. You fought. And you brought life back to a place that was fading." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't look away. "Then let's keep building it. Together." Nathan leaned in, his kiss gentle but certain, a promise sealed not by words but by shared breath, shared battles, shared hope. And in that moment, Elena knew. She was no longer a rejected bride, no longer a woman lost between yesterday and tomorrow. She was home. And so, across these unforgiving lands, another tale drifts away with the wind. If this quiet courage, this stubborn heart touched you in any way, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and pass this story on to someone who needs it. Don't forget to subscribe, because out here there are still so many truths left to tell, each one carved from pain, hope, and dust. This is Wild West Stories. Thank you for watching.